Artificial intelligence news, research and thoughts from leading AI minds, researchers, and enthusiasts. With host Tennisha Martin. This is a show where we discuss artificial intelligence at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, education, and society. We're going to let you finish, but Tennisha's got thoughts.
What's up? We are back with another episode of AI Thoughts Online. I'm the host, Tennisha Martin, and I'm super excited to have Mr. Ron Eddings here with us today. Ron, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. How you doing?
I am good. It is Friday. I am about to do some traveling, so I am relaxed for now, and it'll probably be all be ruined tomorrow on the way to the airport. So we'll see.
Good luck.
Thank you. So introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm the CEO, co-founder at Hacker Valley Media. My background is all about cybersecurity, though. Like, I might run a media company today, but I like to describe myself as a son of cybersecurity. The first 12 years of my career, I focused on offensive ops and also doing cyber defense. I worked for the NSA, a few contractors. And I saw that one of my early mentors, Marcus Carey, was on the show. So I was like, oh, I got to talk about AI, especially, in the world of cyber and technology. There's a lot of overlap. But I say I'm a son of cybersecurity because I have some great mentors. It's been with me since I was a teen. I got a great job at Booz Allen Hamilton right after graduating high school, thanks to my amazing mentors like Marcus Carey. And I'm a son of it as well because it's providing for me still in so many ways. I just had a little baby girl. So cybersecurity is doing that thing for me on that front as well. And my company, Hacker Valley Media, we do podcasts, we do cybersecurity videos and events, and we help elevate cybersecurity professionals and brands.
Awesome. I absolutely love it. I was actually going to ask you about your background because I saw that I think maybe in 2017 or 2018, you got a nano degree in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And that was way before ChatGPT and, the most recent, I think craze as it relates to AI was released. Mm-hmm. What made you think that was the way to go?
At that time, I was working at Intel Corporation, the chip manufacturer, and we were building a lot of custom automations. And what I saw building custom cybersecurity automation after custom cybersecurity automation is that what I was building was an expert system. Like, I had all of these conditions in here. Like, if this happened, maybe if this was looks like a port scan on port 80, then do this and then do something else. And I thought to myself, and my team thought this as well, like, how do we make decisions without always having to be the person in the loop, writing the conditional logic or responding to a specific piece of information? So the closest thing that I could find was statistical analysis, and doing a lot of Google searching. I started following this guy, Raj Saral, He's a big YouTuber, not so much anymore, but he was back at that time, and he was talking all about artificial intelligence. I started following other people, and like especially in the Twitter sphere, once you get into a Twitter group, you kind of like start to get obsessive. So I took the AI nano degree because it was the only thing that I could find at that time that was like formal structure and education about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that I think that makes a lot of sense, because I think even today, after what ChatGPT has been around for a couple of years, I don't think we see a lot of training as it relates to AI. I've seen some recently, but there hasn't been a lot. So you mentioned Marcus J. Carey. He was on, I think, a couple episodes ago, and was extremely optimistic about AI and the future and the possibilities. Like our friend was like absolutely hyped. I love that. Are you as optimistic, having been, basically in this space for at least the past however many years that is at this point?
I'm up there. So I remember talking to Marcus Carey about artificial intelligence and machine learning. People used to get mad when I would say the term artificial intelligence. And Marcus, was one of the people that didn't get mad, but he was also a little cautious about using the word intelligence to describe a machine. But I saw it, and I built things using that AI nano degree that were very rudimentary. Like it taught me how does Google Maps work. Like there's specific rewards that you give AI and machine learning models to perform in the optimal way. And one of the things that Google Maps does is it rewards the system for finding the shortest path that takes the least amount of time. Machines love rewards. We put these conditions on them just like people. So I saw that there was this direct overlap between human intellect and machine intellect, whatever we program it to, early on. And now everybody loves the term AI. Everybody's caught up with ChatGPT. And just like back then, I'm experimenting with things that might not be mainstream yet, but I see the possibilities. And I think the closer that you get to the technology, the more that you see the adjacent possible.
Absolutely. So I think if you've ever seen any of our past episodes, I've got concerns when it comes to AI. Just
as you should.
When it comes to like some of the bias issues, when it comes to some of the ethical issues, do you think that at this point it's more good or bad in terms of the future outlook for what AI is going to bring to society?
The only bad part that I see about artificial intelligence is the slow adoption of it. This reminds me of when there were smartphones, the early generations of smartphones, iPhone, and there was a few Android phones out there. And a lot of people fought back. They were like, I'm sticking to my Razor. I'm sticking to this Flip. I'm sticking to my Sidekick. I'm sure a lot of people remember the Sidekick. Legendary phone. It opened up a lot of avenues, but smartphones took it to a whole nother level. My parents fought for a long time not to adopt a smartphone. They didn't want to be distracted and have their phone in their hand all the time. They thought we were crazy for doing what we were doing. Now my dad is all about getting the latest version of my previous iPhone. So like that's how my dad gets his upgrades, is through my, hey, I just got a new phone. Here you go, Dad. And he loves it. He loves his iPhone. He takes pictures of his grandkids. And I look at AI as similar to that, where if the slower and more reluctant we are to adopt it, the worse the outcome may be for the minority. If the minority adopts it, starts putting our spin, our touch, our influence on it, then the better. And I think that it's really important that women, especially women of color, are interacting with AI. It's very important that men of color are operating with AI. So we are not creating a poisonous well, but the well is fed with good information and also good feedback and review as well.
So you said that your only downside is it slow to adopt, right? So when ChatGPT first came out, I think that was around 2022. I want to say it was like 30,000 folks wrote an open letter saying like, "Hey, we need to put a pause. Like, there's some concerns." Did
Yep.
you not have those same concerns, or you're like, "Hey, you guys are behind the train. Let's go. You need to catch up."
The only thing that concerns me on them not pausing is the fact that OpenAI went from a nonprofit to a for-profit business. So that's the only thing that I find worrisome about the rate at which they're, giving out new AI models, is the fact that it's not so open anymore. It might as well be called closed AI. The fact that they're producing less open source contributions, they're starting to have a very specific SaaS structure, and it seems like it's good for business. But that's my only concern about the OpenAI front, and the only reason why I would probably write a petition is to get them to honor the fact that they're a nonprofit, or figure something else out. I feel like if you're going to be a for-profit, you can't start as a nonprofit, because that's how people got to know you. Back in 2017, I applied for OpenAI grants, and I thought like OpenAI was the coolest thing ever. It still is, but things change when you start to monetize it.
Absolutely. So what about like the ethical and like the bias related issues? You mentioned the necessity to have Black women, Black men, for example, to be engaging in these types of systems. But, when you look at some of the outcomes as far as like the error rates when it comes to facial recognition, for example, or some of the bias, like if you ask it to show you what juvenile criminal justice looks like, and they only print Black men, little Black children, I should say, are those things not concerning for you?
It seems like an ignorance issue, like where it's not necessarily malicious in nature, but it's just a lacking of knowledge. That's how I look at things like that. When I first started tinkering with AI, it did have a very hard time with Black people, and there was this early case study of the dangers because AI was classifying Black people as gorillas. And I thought that, damn, that's unfortunate. But America has done this. America, I've heard people speak negatively of people of color and say that they remind them of monkeys. So I don't necessarily look at that as a malicious thing, because it's just the way that we were trained. It's what we were trained with. And I look at the OpenAI models as the same. If you have the nerve to call someone something that they're not, then I look at that as it's an education issue, rather than like this person or this AI model is maliciously out here trying to get me.
So it's not necessarily intentional, but it's more so like it just hasn't had the opportunity to learn and grow and get data sets which show them a different it's just basically reflecting what's been put in, which depicts what the reality is at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the more that our country and the world evolves, the better that the AI models will get. But we're still, going through things as African Americans and just America as a whole. Like, we're actually about to get a new election. So the AI is going to grow and evolve as these outcomes change and evolve with us.
So you mentioned that you had a background in security, and it's not even like you just dabbled. You were doing the darn thing for a minute there, right? What about the security concerns? I think the expectation would be that they would have basically built in security, but I think that we're following the same pattern that I think a lot of software has, which is we're trying to bake security in as an afterthought, after it's already been built, right? So what about those concerns? Do you have any security related concerns, or you're saying like, hey, it's no different than anything else out here?
Well, I look at this revolution as like the smartphone revolution. I don't think that we knew how to secure smartphones. We didn't necessarily know what was going to be the most valuable information, especially back in 2010. So like at one point, the valuable thing on the smartphone was the IMEI number, where, it's like the serial number for that specific phone and SIM card. And over time, the most valuable thing might be the text messages, it might be the pictures, but back in 2010, that probably was the least valuable thing. I think the same about AI, where we don't necessarily know what is valuable about it yet from a security perspective. What do attackers want? Of course, I think at a minimum, they will want to understand how the model works. If they put a specific level of information in, can they fool the output that's coming back out? So I think that's right now the valuable thing. But I think that the valuable thing is going to change and evolve as time goes on, and that we've seen that with cybersecurity. When I was first getting started, the most valuable thing was having a access to a physical device. And now having someone's password is a lot more valuable. Like I'd much rather have their password than be right on their device, because there's a lot of security built into the device these days.
Gotcha. So you had talked a little bit about your experience with AI so far. I think we were talking before the show a little bit about, I think it's called the second brain.
Yeah.
It's a model for basically setting up what AI in your own life. Can you talk a little bit about that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a really amazing person. There's a few people that like really are building this second brain philosophy for people like you and I. The first person is the creator of the framework. His name is Tiago Forte. He's got a book on it. I watched a lot of his YouTube videos on like the topic, but I found out about Tiago Forte because of this guy named Thomas Frank. I'm a huge Notion user. Anyone that's out there that loves Notion, shout outs to you. You're on the right track. I'm a huge Notion user, and this guy Thomas Frank is as well. I've always used Notion for my personal life. I've tried to use it professionally. Now that I have my own business, I finally can. But I use Notion quite a bit. And this guy, Thomas Frank, was showing how to use the second brain philosophy in your Notion system. So he's got kind of like a hard overlap between his work and life. He talks about how to optimize his life. That's what his work is. But for me, my work doesn't necessarily overlap completely with my life, like my personal life. So I took it and flipped it on its head and said, this is going to be all for work. So we follow Tiago Forte's PARA method, which stands for projects, areas of focus, resources, and he had like this archive bucket. So I built it a little bit differently for my company. I have goals, KPIs, projects, and tasks. And these are their own databases, but they're all connected. So goals are connected to a KPI. You can only complete your goal if you're walking down a specific route. If my goal is to produce X amount of videos, maybe I want to produce 20 videos, then I need to break that into smaller chunks, produce 5 videos or produce 1 video. That's a KPI. And then for projects are what power your KPIs. They're what control that input and output. So projects are also like a kind of a big unit of measurement because they have multiple tasks within them. So everything, our smallest unit at Hacker Valley, our atom, is a task. And tasks are made up of projects. Well, tasks make up projects, and then projects make up KPIs. KPIs make up goals. And the way that I have it structured in Notion is everything is connected. So as I create a new project, we have these buttons to where we're able to say, create these set of tasks over and over and over again. And with the second brain system, it's also designed so you can search for things easily. So since we have all of our project information into Notion, we also use that as our wiki as well. So we have all of that flowing in, but all of our files are in Google Drive. Now, what second brain, kind of the philosophy is like, you're not necessarily creating a second brain that's going to work day one, but you're organizing information and resources in a way to where if you're adding a layer on top, you're able to search across everything. Mm-hmm. So what lives on top of Notion and Google Drive is this application called Alfred. Alfred allows me to search across both. So if I do Command Shift on my computer, I can type in S space and then like my search term, and that will search across everything. And lately, I've been doing AI generated call transcripts as well. And that's been going into our Notion. So over time, like we're almost like adding IQ to our second brain over like as time goes on by organizing information in a very structured way that kind of fits into projects and tasks. And then we also have resources, but like project tasks is like our main bucket. And as long as we fit things into that bucket, we're able to search across all of like the information that we collect over time. And with AI, you combine all of that together, that's your intellectual property. Like all of the experiences and the way that you do things, that's very strong IP. And I think that's how like a lot of solopreneurs have been born today, but also a lot of big corporations, they have this intellectual property on its own. It's still worth a good amount. And, that's what I'm trying to build for Hacker Valley.
Mm-hmm. And what's the difference between like when we're talking about like, something like second brain and, having to Google or, other methods? You mentioned using Notion. Like, what does that add, above and beyond, what we would traditionally think if we were going to look for information or recall things that we may not have necessarily remembered?
Yeah, the most important information, in my opinion, is information that has been exposed to you some in one way or another. And information that's been exposed to you is like this podcast. So if I wanted to find where is this podcast at, I preferably I'd like to search my own base of knowledge first, because that's what's already been curated by me and maybe even revised by me. But if I'm searching the web, that's helpful. But if I already have the information, then I think it's just you get more accurate information for things that you've already worked on. So for us, if we're looking for a podcast episode that we recorded, we have everything organized in Notion and Google Drive. So if we're using our tool Alfred on top, then it's searching both of those. I could search based off of the full title, or I could search based off a keyword. I could search based off of date. I could search based off of a podcast label. So with the second brain, you're almost like using it as if you would use your own mind. Everybody's mind works a little bit differently, but you got to make sure that, the way that you think of things or the way that you learn is optimized best for you.
Gotcha. So it's basically like giving you like a frame of reference. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to go out and do a Google search and get everything, but I'm going to go out and do a search, but it's only going to give results based on, my frame of reference. So, the things that I necessarily care about.
Exactly. And what I've been doing with kind of this frame of reference is like, since there is things like AI, what I did was, since we have all of our calls transcribed, I pointed OpenAI's API to it, all of those calls, and I said, hey, give me the characteristics that really stand out in a positive way about these sales calls that I've been on. And then it started listing off, here are the Hacker Valley strengths based off of my intellectual property. No one else has access to these calls. No one else can, say how well they could sell based off of, information that's very specific to you. So combining like this knowledge base of knowledge that you collect and curate for yourself, now you could use things like AI to distill it down further, go back and review things for you. I also have it like doing automatic note additions to Slack as well. And now we're starting to onboard Slack as part of that second brain as well.
That's absolutely amazing. So there's a lot of use cases that I think folks don't traditionally think about when they're thinking about AI in terms of, the possibilities. You mentioned that you are I think it's a executive producer for Hacker Valley Media. So I know a lot of folks that are today, here and now, are interested in content creation and trying to figure out, what's the best way to engage folks. Can you talk a little bit about, when and how to use AI as a cybersecurity content creator, and when, I guess more importantly, not to use it?
When not to use it, we can start there. This is going to be an easy one. Don't use it verbatim. You have to create your own work. That's the hardest part. It's also the most rewarding part of any job, is the fact, when you do something and put it out there, when when I see some posts on LinkedIn is like my favorite platform, this platform that I live on. I do
Same.
notice AI artifacts, this ever evolving digital landscape that's truly transformative. Like when I see words together like that, I'm like, that's ChatGPT. So I think that I would not recommend using it that way. These platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they have said that they are trying to find posts generated with AI. There's no consequence behind it, but I
Mhm.
do think that there's algorithmic consequences behind it because those posts are the most similar because you're using terminology that literally, millions of people are using as well because they're using that output. But you're using a lot of that same terminology, and they already are looking for they have already built into their algorithms the fact that looking for those AI generated posts. But if you wanted to supercharge yourself and use AI as a benefit, I've taken myself speaking and said, all right, give me a post about this transcript. Like I just spoke into the phone for 15 minutes. Now distill it down. I think using that as like a guide, like your own thoughts first, using AI as like a co-pilot, and then making that final copy is, I think, one of the best ways to use it. Taking a rough idea and having it get expanded upon is another great way. But I think that one of those hidden use cases is having AI give you information and store it somewhere. I feel like a lot of people will use something like ChatGPT, but they won't necessarily take that output and like put it in a Google Drive or a Google Doc. That is way more valuable because the ideas that you have over time, it's like the combination of uh, the 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 sum is not as big as adding all the parts. Like you have to add in all of the parts. I look at dropping information to a central location as the most important thing a creator could do because you're going to have ideas that come and go and then you revisit. I just had a t-shirt idea today and I wrote it down in my Notion, my second brain. I was very glad I did, but I was using ChatGPT to help me refine the idea. Now, if I had to go back to ChatGPT and find the thread, I wouldn't spend the time doing it.
Absolutely. So, I don't think that I've ever thought to actually store the results of the things that I've asked. I've been working on on some research for my dissertation, and I will literally have forgotten like what it is that I asked, and then accidentally close out the window, and then you'd have to go back and be like, what did I ask, and what. Which is interesting that you would actually store that information because I would never think to do that because I would assume that if I went back and I asked the same question that I would get the same result, ideally, right? But realistically, am I going to remember what the question was or how I asked it? And then is the
Exactly.
information that is going to provide me back going to be static? So, having that information as a point in time reference that you can come back to later, I think makes a lot of sense. What are some of the use cases that or ways that people can use AI that they may not necessarily think about? Like, what are some narrow and practical uses for AI?
Yeah, one thing that I think has been picking up steam a lot, I mentioned it a few times already, is call transcripts. So having that note taker on a Zoom call, a Microsoft Teams call with you, huge, easy win. And it drops in a central place. Another one is image generation. A lot of us, including myself, have a hard time thinking of what is a thumbnail I could use for this episode? What is a background I could use for my virtual background? Having AI give it that first stab is really, really great. For anyone that loves to tinker with Adobe products, I use Adobe Illustrator. I'll take specific parts of an AI generated image, stash it. Like, oh, this is a really cool gear. That's perfect. I'm going to use Illustrator to make a vector image of it and then use it with other assets. And then one other one that comes to mind is AI is great for now applying beautiful filters on us, whether it be your voice or your face. You know, I've heard that there's this fatigue with Zoom. I'm not sure where it comes from because we all used to be in offices in front of people. And I never heard about the fatigue there. I heard about the fatigue of driving home at the end of the day. But, some people don't necessarily love getting ready for their Zoom calls. And I get it because you're still at home. You want to be comfortable. They have the AI filters. Apple has been dropping in some AI. They have like that studio look filter that they just added into the iOS operating system. And they also have this voice isolation mode as well that's built into your Mac. I'm sure Microsoft has something as well. But we're already using AI in ways that I don't think a lot of people are even realizing or super stunned about.
You mentioned the using it for taking notes when you're taking meetings. Like, we use them sometimes as well. One of my concerns when we first started thinking about using AI to basically transcribe meetings was, what are they doing with that data, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same way we've seen a couple of companies who have gotten in trouble by, having ChatGPT review their code, and now their code's out and available.
Yep.
Are you at all concerned about, basically your IP that can be gleaned from these transcripts being used or being learned from by these models?
That has crossed my mind. I would not put anything sensitive into an AI model. I would not put my credit card information. I would not put my social security or my EIN in there. But I think that we also have to price how valuable our data is. My call transcripts on their own, like if somebody were to get all of my call transcripts and learn all about how Hacker Valley does like our processes, I would say great. Now I have a competitor out there that's going to maybe make some copies of what I do, and then I'm gonna learn from them. I think there's a book called The Artist Way, and there's even another book called the Steal Like an Artist, and The Artist Way and Steal Like an Artist are all about how imitation is the first step to mastery. So if somebody does want to imitate Hacker Valley, I would invite them. If they did have access to my IP, I would celebrate them as long as they are helping up level the field of cybersecurity podcasting. There's people out there that I see their videos. Hacker Valley has a very specific look and feel for, like, we do a border, we do the captions a certain way. I've seen people rip off, some of our video templates, but I invite that. I'm like, okay, cool. Now that I know that people are learning how to do this, it's time for me to up my game even further.
And that makes sense. I mean, because it just pushes you to come up with better ideas, because, everything else becomes common knowledge, whatever. That makes a lot of sense. So when we're talking about some of the use cases for AI, I think that you mentioned that you had like a development background. So can you talk a little bit about like the use of AI for software development? I think that you said that at some point that you had some kind of ChatGPT that was engaged in helping you do some development for your business.
Yeah, ChatGPT has helped write all the code for my website. I have this bad issue as a co-founder, as a CEO, that I won't let anybody code up my website. I won't use Squarespace. I won't use Wix. None of that. It's got to be custom, because I know that for me, running a business, you got to be the yardstick for quality. Mm-hmm. And I just have very specific requirements and needs, but I don't have a lot of time. So ChatGPT was right there with me on Saturdays and Sundays in the morning when my daughter and my wife were still sleeping, helping me get through some of these nuances and esoteric coding bugs that I would have never known, and I don't think Stack Overflow even knew about. But ChatGPT, with the collection of knowledge, it was able to help me really build all the aspects of my website. So much so that there was another website that I loved. There was this company called Ruckus Marketing. Shout outs to Ruckus. I used to work with them. They introduced us to Simone Biles, and we, did a lot of work with them. Their homepage, I said, wow, they got a video playing on their homepage. So elegant. They had text over top. So I took a screenshot and I said, ChatGPT, how in the heck did they make this? It had a perfect solution. And then I went to another website. This website, I think it's called Fantasy Footballers. There's these guys that have this podcast, and they had this interaction on their video player where when you click the play button, the video expanded out. And that was mind blowing to me. I went to ChatGPT. I said, hey, here's what happened. I took a before and after screenshot of it, and then asked ChatGPT to write me the code. And it did phenomenal. So I gave it my code. And I said, hey, here's what I want to do with my own look and feel. Here's like an example. And it was not necessarily perfect because there was a lot of revisions that I needed to do, but it was so helpful. I would have never been able to do it on my own.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Like I never would have thought to, be like, hey, here's a website, tell me how to replicate it. I think as a hacker, like my first thought is like, hey, if you've got a website, then I can, get the code in a matter of seconds and then, just go from there. But this is a way for you to develop a unique solution that I think folks may not think about. So that's absolutely.
What was also important about this whole project, exactly what you mentioned, being a hacker. I know the vulnerabilities that come with having a website. So I made it a point that I'm not using any Node modules. I'm not doing any React programming. HTML, CSS, light JavaScript, all custom. So I feel very confident that like now, because of this process, that my website has no vulnerabilities. It's not accessing any two-way connections. Like it's pretty much read only. Like everything on my website is an output. And because of the way that I built it and like just all the things I learned through ChatGPT, now I feel very confident to like have anyone go to the website in any manner that they're trying to and not hit any sensitive information or crash my website because it's hosted in the cloud. So I would invite anyone that's out there to also try to crash our website, because I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I like I said, I never would have thought about that, but I mean, I'm thinking about it now. So, I think, thank you for that. So what about vendor lock-in? I think that you had mentioned about the AI's use cases for that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. AI and cloud, I feel like are cousins because, it's all SaaS based. Everything costs $10.99 to $20.99, $54.99 a year. All of these services are kind of nickeling and diming us in a way that is effective because it is helpful. But it's very hard to get your information out of AI systems, just like it's kind of difficult to get your data out of the cloud. So we were talking about ChatGPT and having all those threads. A different thread is kind of a different conversation for ChatGPT. If you wanted to get all of that information out, how would you do it? You probably have to write a program, right? You have to like, or spend the time to go through each and every one of those threads, and that would be painful. Who knows? Maybe your browser would restart. That would be kind of annoying. So same for LinkedIn. If you wanted to get all your LinkedIn posts out, all of your LinkedIn posts out of the LinkedIn platform into a spreadsheet, it's not happening without custom tech. And I've noticed that with AI, but I think using AI, you can kind of balance that lock-in. So I use this note-taking service called Fathom. Fathom is a great application. It's like a AI SaaS first company, but I have I think there was 600 calls in Fathom. And if I can't get all that call information out, then I have to be a customer for life. And if I don't have a way, then that's going to suck. So I've used ChatGPT to write scripts to interact with Fathom's API, other systems APIs, to pull that information out and store it in a way that is going to make it not locked into a specific vendor.
So then you could just basically port it over. If you decide that you want to leave them and go somewhere else, you'll still have, that's absolutely amazing. I don't think people think about that at all. I know I haven't, because I have been locked in a couple of places just because it's like, I don't want to lose the history. That's
Exactly. That's tough with the vendor lock-in as well. OpenAI, Anthropic, who produces Claude 3, Google that has Gemini 1.0, 1.5, it's still lock-in, because once you get access to that general purpose technology, that AI general purpose, what can you do now? Like, I need general purpose AI to summarize my calls, do things in a very dynamic way. So I do think that when you feel as though you're not locked in, you're still locked in. So I'm locked into two right now: OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Claude.
I was about to say they get my money every month. So I don't think there's anything I could do about it at this point.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the future of AI? What are your predictions, and what do you think we need to be on the lookout for, especially as cybersecurity practitioners?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned a little bit ago, we should absolutely be experimenting with AI. It really warms my heart to hear that you got a license, you're making little contributions. I think you got to be mindful though. It can be easy to want something or someone to do your job. Never expect someone to do your dirty work for you. That's what that would be my advice. You know, if you are using ChatGPT to try to write a business plan, I don't think we're there. I don't think you would want that. Like, you have to trust your own intuition. You gotta make sure that you know how to build a business plan. If you want ChatGPT to write your code, you should probably know how to write code, because that's why there's this counterpoint about being afraid of vulnerabilities and having your code leaked. Because if you don't understand what you're doing with this technology, then to me, it's a little bit of negligence. It might be a little bit of malpractice if you're introducing the results to someone else. So I would say, be professional if you're using AI and generative AI in a professional manner. Like, be professional. Don't malpractice. Understand what you're putting in and also what you're taking out.
Absolutely. And I think that you said that you were more of a blue teamer than a red team. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I was on the doing the red teaming for 3 years, and then blue team and working at vendors for like 9.
And so, do you think that AI has the potential to basically eliminate hackers of the future or cybersecurity professionals of the future?
It's going to make them step their game up. At a minimum, they already have. They've been using the AI tools right before the pandemic. My inbox was clean. I didn't have a bunch of emails. The Google filters, Google Workspace filters, Microsoft filters were doing a great job. But now, after ChatGPT dropped, my inbox has been crazy. I think they've been using these generative AI models to beat the
Phishing
spam
and the
filters. So kudos to the hackers, kudos to the scammers. But yeah, they're gonna have to step their game up, because in a year or two, we're gonna be using that technology to be better and better and better at detecting anomalies.
Absolutely. I think from a red team perspective, I'm actually doing my research in this in the use of offensive AI. And I think at some point, when people ask me like, "Hey, do you think AI is going to take over, our jobs at some point?" I don't think that we can get away from like a human in a loop model where at some point there's a demarcation point where, AI is going to be effective and useful up until this point, but it will, to your point, require that, hackers get better at their job, right? Because most of the low level vulnerabilities, most of the low level tasks, are automatable, and those are things that AI can probably do pretty efficiently, and they don't need humans to do it, of course, right? But it will require that you get more technical, that you have more knowledge, especially when it comes to things related to critical thinking and problem solving and things of that nature. So, I think that I know, at least for the offensive security side, we have a very good future ahead of us as far as employability. But I think for the blue team side, it's probably the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard a great quote. I can't recall who it was by, but they say AI isn't going to steal your job. Someone using AI is going to steal your job. And I think that is the truth. Someone that understands what they do with a deep level of knowledge with AI, limitless. It's limitless from what I've seen and saw. I've seen people build new technologies. I've seen people build their companies. Um, yeah, if you're using AI and you're skilled, it's going to be a good and bright future for you.
Absolutely. So any last minute shout outs? Do you have anything that you want to plug coming up?
Yeah, so I'm gonna plug Hacker Valley, of course. Would love for anyone and everyone to check out Hacker Valley Media. We produce a lot of cybersecurity content, all about help elevating the topic and community of cybersecurity. And I got to shout out my cousin. We didn't mention that. Thank you so much, cousin, for having me. We didn't
Absolutely.
know for a while, but we are actually related and actually first cousins, which is really
Yes.
cool.
It is absolutely amazing. Somebody was like, "Oh, he's your cousin," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that." But it's good to know.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out. Can folks connect with you online? Do you want to drop your socials?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at Ronald Eddings on any platform. I would love to connect.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this has been another episode of the AI Thoughts Online, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.